The information that you're about to, most of the information, especially having to do with history and these kinds of things, a lot of the stuff comes from this man. Now, the things that I'm about to tell you are fantastic by normal ways of thinking. Again, you'll have to see for yourself if what I'm saying is true or not. But this is hieroglyphics here. It's written on papyrus paper, which is supposedly the first paper. He was the person, according to Egypt, that introduced writing to the world. Egypt supposedly started approximately 500 years later. It's not true. It started simultaneously with Sumerian, and that'll eventually be proven here real soon. But right now, and I'll explain why there's this 500-year difference at the right moment. But both Sumerian and Egypt started at the same time, but they were started from two different sources. One was called Mommy, the other was called Daddy. That which created us as a race before came back to start unfolding who we are. But this whole thing is hieroglyphics. It's a form of writing. Hieroglyphics means holy writing. And it's all hieroglyphics, not just this up here, but this too. This is a symbol which means a very specific person. And in Egypt his name was Thoth, spelled Thoth. And he doesn't look like that. He doesn't have a bird head on his body. That's the hieroglyphic that represents him. He looks very much like, he would look Egyptian if you see him today. And he's holding two reeds in his hand, which are the papyrus reeds. And he's holding an ankh in his hand, which is one of these, which is a symbol that represents eternal life. In any of the hieroglyphics, when a man is holding that or a woman is holding that, it means they've reached immortality. They're no longer ever going to die. And by the way, immortality has a definition from our point of view. It does not mean someone who lives in the same body forever and ever and ever and ever. That's called a trap or something. I'm not going to do that. Immortality means that your memory pattern and your consciousness has no more break in it anymore. You have total memory going back to the moment, at least to the moment that you began immortality, and your memory and your consciousness has no break, no matter where you pass through. There's no loss. Like right now, we die and we go into particular overtone of the fourth dimension. We forget that we're here once we're there. And then when we come back this way, we forget that we came from there, we're back over here. Keep making the cycle, forgetting each time, though it's accessible because it's in our, it's magnetically held, so it's possible to reach into these ancient memories, old memories, but we keep forgetting. But once you reach immortality, there's no more forgetting. So you can leave and you can die at will when you want to. You can leave a body, you can go into other, because as you will go on, you will find that there's other bodies that are more appropriate for higher levels of consciousness than this one. And at some certain point you'll realize that you don't need any body at all. But the consciousness continues on. But this person here, he considers himself an earth person. In truth, we are all from somewhere else other than Earth. Because Earth, we're all from somewhere, not necessarily from Earth. But he considers himself that because that's where he gained his immortality, was here. And he gained it during the time of Atlantis, approximately 52,000 years ago. And he has remained in the same body for 52,000 years and has walked on Earth for 52,000 years, walking around. And he could have left here and gone on with one of the past cycles if he really wanted to. But he chose to stay here, very much, for you Hindus out there, very much like a bodhisattva now, where he realized that we were all connected, and he decided to stay back, even though he could go on, and be a teacher, and to help the lower aspect come up. And he just left, though. part of it did anyway. And he made this transition over this octave, along with 31 other beings. He made the first time ever of this consciousness level into the higher levels. And so anyway, a lot of this is going to be coming from this one particular person. A great deal, about 50% of it is coming from there. And when I got here, one of the first things I did was connect with him. And then at the right time, when I needed to know the histories of the earth, he gave me the histories, because he had such a long memory. And his mom is 200,000 years old. She's still walking around also on the earth. And so he has a long memory pattern going back pretty much to the beginning. Though he says that something happened 5.5 million years ago that was really big and could never explain to me exactly what it was, or I couldn't understand what it was. And something big time hit the earth, because we can't get through to the ancient memories before that. And I don't understand, from my little point of view where I am right now, I don't understand how that's possible. Because once you create an action or something happens, it goes into what's called the Akashic records. Mathematically, if you strike a bell, that bell will never go away. It's called asymptotically reaching a limit. Mathematically, it will theoretically exist forever, and it should still be attainable if you could track down through the golden mean spiral to the place where it started. But something happened, must have been really big, and they can't get through, and so none of the ancients can get through this. They can't consciously go back, though there are records that go back. They still can't consciously go back like they can for the first 5.5 million years, according to him. Anyway, this is his symbol, which is an ibis bird. I think there's several reasons why they chose that, but one of them is because it hangs out in the reeds all the time. The second time I was in Egypt, I went all over looking for one of these ibis birds, looking through all the reeds. And I must have went through about 5 miles, went through reeds. And never could find one of these guys, and never did see one anywhere, not even from a distance. I had to move. I got back to the Albuquerque Zoo. And that's an ibis bird right there. They look like little sort of pink, short storks. And here's Thoth writing. This is an actual hieroglyph of him writing on one of the walls in Egypt, and laying down the writing. We didn't need writing until a certain point. When the consciousness got to a certain level, then we had to use writing. Before that, we had 100% absolute total holographic memory. There was no reason to do it. Anything that any person ever experienced, anybody else could re-experience at any time that they wanted to. And we still have people like that on the earth right now, today. There's whole groups of them. One of them is the Aboriginals in Australia. Those people are all linked together in a very specific level of consciousness. And they can, if one of them were here in this room right now, then in essence I would be giving it to all of them. They can go into what they call dream time and come in, and it's a holographic world. They would be able to walk around in here and look at this happening. They could experience the whole 5 days, as many as they wanted to. And but it would not be real. It would be like a hologram. It would be like light. It would not be real. It would be, they couldn't remove things or use things, but it would be like hologram. But it's a perfect memory. They could smell, they could hear the sounds. It'd be just like being here. But it wouldn't be real. So we obviously didn't need writing when you got that kind of memory. It was only when we jumped up to the next level of consciousness, which is where we are now, which is a stepping stone from one unity consciousness, which was the first one, to the next unity consciousness, which we call Christ consciousness. And both of those also have unity consciousness, only Christ consciousness is memory. Memory is the key to all of this. the memory of the Christ consciousness body is much greater. If the apparitional could come into this room and they would be remembering it, but from like a light field. If the Christ conscious being remembered the room, they would literally be here in time and space. It's a little different. They would just appear. They'd be here. If they remembered an orange, if an apparitional remembers an orange, then he's got an orange, but he can't do anything with it. If a Christ conscious being remembers an orange, he's got a real orange. He can pick it up and peel it. So obviously, whatever his memory extends through all time and space and everything that's ever occurred. So all things are possible. It's a whole other level, and there's levels beyond that. Our memory, we are in a separate state. This is the stepping stone. We contain within us the parameters of Christ consciousness, which I'll geometrically be able to show you at the right moment. But we are not Christ consciousness, and but we're a stepping stone in that someone from the first level of consciousness steps into this level of consciousness and then gets out of it as quick as possible to the third one. Have to pass through here, but you don't want to hang out here because we are not a harmonic consciousness and we will destroy any place that we are in, i.e. look at the earth. Just give us enough time and we would completely kill this planet. And it's just the way we are because we are not harmonic. And I have to explain a lot to explain what that means before I can get to that place. And writing is the key. That's how you take someone from the first level of consciousness and get them out into the second level. You introduce writing where they no longer access memory directly from within themselves, but they have to go through a symbol or a word or a color or a form or a shape, which is how our memory is. We have to access something. We can't even remember something unless we check. Our eyes have to move at very specific angles, even to remember things, which is connected to shape and form. And we don't have that ability. And as soon as you do that, then that is part of. There's something else that changes, which is the breathing pattern itself. And we result in this separate state that we see now, where we see ourselves in a body, and everything out there feels to be separate from us. And we think that we can have thoughts and feelings, and that somehow it doesn't affect anything out there, which is illusion. It isn't true at all. Because our thoughts and our feelings dramatically affect what's happening. But anyway, a lot of these things I'm just lightly touching on. I'm going to go over later in detail. So writing was the key in all of this. This was his wife, Shizak, who was also one of my teachers. She was the one that brought me here in the first place, about 3,500 years ago. And she's also a recorder, recording from the feminine view rather than the male view. South was, when South first came to me, he first appeared to me, I believe it was in 1972. And the angels had come to me and they had given me his, well, they didn't give me his name. They gave me the name of this guy named Wilt Chipman, who was a Canadian in British Columbia, and told me I was to go there. And I studied alchemy with him for 2 years. And he was really doing it. Though he wasn't sure himself that he was really doing it. He really was. He figured out how to turn mercury into gold, which is just, the process itself is not as important, but the understanding of how it does that. So you can apply it from this level. It's really the process of how this level of consciousness goes into Christ consciousness. And by understanding how mercury goes into gold or lead into gold, you can understand how those that takes place on a human level. The truth is that alchemy is not just that, though it's been centered on that. All chemical levels whatsoever, and all chemical reactions have their counterparts in human experience. Though alchemy is pretty much focused on this one step because it's the most important one for us at this time. I studied this with him for 2 years. He had a little house like a little ordinary house in Burnaby, Canada. And I don't know if I've ever said this before, I'll say. And up in this room, he had this bubble machine, this machine filled with this liquid, and mercury would rise in there, and as it would change different colors. And when it got to the top, it would turn to solid gold and sink back down. So he had these little bubbles coming up and turning into gold, and he'd collect a whole bunch of gold out of there. And every day he'd collect these things up. And he built this chemistry lab downstairs. So you would go into this house, like an ordinary house, and go into this closet, and you go down this elevator into this incredible space age downstairs. But he'd spent millions of dollars on building this place hidden from the rest of the world. And it was huge. It was about the size of this whole room in here, filled with everything you can think of, electron balances to everything that you ever need or want. And anyway, I was studying alchemy with him, and about 2 years down the line one day, pretty far down the line, we were in Nelson, British Columbia, and he wanted to teach me a particular meditation, and so I sat down and learned this meditation. It was an open night meditation where we were looking into each other's eyes. And as I started doing this meditation, we did it for about an hour or two. I don't know how long it was in time, but it was a long time that we're staring at. The room had gone away and everything. All there was just sort of his eyes I was looking at. But when suddenly something happened that never happened before, and he just disappeared. And at first I thought it was just a phenomenal effect of my eyes, watching this guy's eyes for so long. And he was gone for a long time. And finally I reached over and I kind of went like this. And there was nobody there. He was just gone. And I was like, wow. And, but this time my concentration was back in the room. I was really looking at the spot, and there was nobody there. And after a few minutes, this person reappeared there. Just appeared. And only it wasn't him. It was somebody else. Totally different. We weren't even close. And he was about 35 years old. This guy was maybe 65 or 70 years old. And he wasn't Anglo-white type. He was dark-skinned. And he looked very Egyptian. And he was not very tall, maybe 5'3" or 4. And he was clean-shaven, but with a long beard that was tied in 5 places and down off his chin. Real thick, tied down. And he wore very simple tan, long-sleeve pants and shirts, but they looked like they were made out of cotton. Real simple clothing. And the thing that got me about this person that just grasped my heart was his eyes. He didn't have anything going on. Everybody's got stuff going on, so it's kind of hard to look at some people's eyes because there's more stuff going on than other people. If you look into their aura, you see more and more stuff. But when he didn't have anything. It was just like looking into the eyes of a baby. Have you ever looked in baby's eyes? You can look in there, it's okay to look down in there, it's really okay. And that's just how he was. I never ever met an adult like that before. Not even any of my teachers, nobody. I'd never seen that before. And I was really impressed with that. And he told me that there were 3 atoms missing in the universe, and I don't even know if I knew where they were. I said, no, I don't really know. And so he gave me a very interesting experience, which I'm not going to talk about here, but when I got back from that experience, I understood what he meant. And I said, okay, I understand. I told him what I learned, and he just smiled and bowed at me and disappeared again. And a few minutes later, Alpha's teacher came back. And I never knew who that guy was. I was studying with 5 different teachers at that time, and besides 4 other ones besides Wilf. And so when the angels who were coming in 2 and 3 times a day at that point, I never asked them who he was. And time went by, and I didn't do it initially, and so as time went by, I just kind of let it go, and he never came up again. And months went by, and then years went by, until finally it was 12 years went by, and one day, 12 years later, he reappeared, and my life changed dramatically. That was on November 1st of 1984. And which I will tell the story at the right time about what happened when we came back in. Okay, Seth came in, and back in, again, he was gone for 12 years. He came back in 1984, in November 1st. And over a period of several months, he began to teach me or instruct me in sacred geometry. I had been instructed from the angels from the very, very first. It was the angels who actually gave me the breathing that we're teaching here. And they taught me a great deal of the sacred geometry. But when he came in, he says, okay, I want to see what you got. And I just gave it to him, and it's like a little ball of white. And he looked at the whole thing and told me that I was missing a whole lot. And so he sat me down every day for several months. He would come into the room, sit down with me on a pillow, and have me make drawings. And I did this for day after day after day after day after day. And after a long period of time, I came up with this drawing here, which was the end result of maybe 3 months of work or something. And of course, this is after I was in I'd already been working for 12 years, and then I came up with this one. And when he got done, he said this was a very special sacred geometry drawing. It was one of the most important ones. It was the first chromosome in the human body. Each of your chromosomes are actually geometrical patterns. And in the geometry of the patterns, which you'll understand this when you get done here, in the very geometry of the chromosome is contained the instructions on how not to just make the human body, but the entire reality. Everything. Only there are certain levels that are missing. There are certain aspects that are missing. The first time that consciousness is self-aware, which we talked about as the Australians, they have 42 plus 2 chromosomes. When it jumps up one more, we gain 2 chromosomes, and we go to 44 plus 2 is what we have. When we go to Christ consciousness, we'll gain 2 more chromosomes and go to 46 plus 2. And then there will be this state further down the line where we will go to 48 plus 2, and then finally the 5th state that we pass through these 5 states, will come to 50 plus 2, 52. And by the way, when I first put this out, which was over 7.5 years ago, there was no scientific proof whatsoever that what I was saying had any basis in biology at all, until in the last couple of years, someone tested the Aboriginals in Australia. Nobody's ever done it. I guess nobody ever figured out and found out that they all have 42 plus 2 chromosomes. They don't have 44 plus 2 like us. And since then they found a couple tribes in Africa, I understand, that also have the 44 plus 2. Got many different names all around the world and in various places of the universe, but the one that he called it was the flower of life. But it's also been called the language of silence and the language of light. Because it is a language, as you're about to see, and it's a language that's hidden underneath, like the words that I'm saying right here. A statement that was pretty outrageous from normal ways of thinking. He says, everything is in here. All the laws of physics, all structure, all crystal structure, all biological life forms in the very shape of every little detail in their bodies, all the planetary bodies, all atomic structure, everything, the entire reality, everything that created it was in this one single image. And that sounds like a pretty powerful statement until you really begin to see how this works, and at which point you'll begin to at least get a feel for that may be true. When he got done teaching all this, he then told me that I would find this image in Egypt. And there was 2 times when I doubted him. And I doubted him on that one because I thought I had read just about everything there was in Egypt, and that did not look like an Egyptian symbol to me. It looked more Christian or something, but it did not look Egyptian. And he just said, "You'll find it in Egypt," and left. And since then, by the way, we found it all over the world, just about everywhere. You'll see at the very end of this, you'll see some of the places that we found it in, but almost everywhere. And, 2 weeks later, I'm sitting in Taos, New Mexico, in Smith's food store, buying some groceries, and Katrina Raphael, this friend of mine who writes books on crystals, was in there. And I had taken her to Egypt the first time she went, and she had just come back from Egypt the second time. And she's a woman who takes a camera and just starts, loading it up, and she takes pictures. And she was sitting there at the counter, taking 36 out at a time and put them on a stack, and she had a stack of pictures, a good 12 inches high or so. She was still stacking them up when I came up to her. And we started talking and saying hello, how you doing, and that kind of stuff. And she said she just got back from Egypt. And then she says, oh, by the way, she says she has an angel that has guided her into writing the books that she wrote and gave her the information that she wrote. It told her how to get the information through the crystals that she wrote. And I believe that angel's name is Sorrel, I think. But anyway, she said that Sorrel told her when she was in Egypt that she was to give me a photograph as soon as she saw me. And I said, oh, okay, give me the photograph. And she goes, well, I don't know which one it is. So she turns around away from the things, goes through and pulls one out at random and hands it to me. And when she did, she handed me this photograph, which was the flower of life on one of the oldest walls in Egypt. That wall's about 6,000 years old. And she didn't know, at that time, she didn't know what I was doing. She had no idea. That didn't mean a thing to her at all. But to me, it was like wow. If you could pick one photograph in the world, that one, you got me pretty good on that one. And later, I went to that place. I went back again. I had to go there once I found out it was there. I had to go find out what was there. And I went back again, and where that was located, this is in Abydos here. And this is from the Dog Star here. Which is serious. And behind, this is Seti the First Temple in Abydos, and behind that, there's actually 3 temples. There's a Seti the First Temple goes like this. There's 3 temples. This is where we're looking right at, like this right now. And there's a real ancient, one of the oldest temples in all of Egypt sits back here. It's called the Osiris. It's where Osiris supposedly was put back together. If you know that story where he was cut into 14 pieces. And this was like a really holy place to the ancient Egyptians. It was so holy that many of the kings in the olden days didn't have the like Zorser, for example, who was men, the same person. That he didn't bury himself in Saqqara, which is he had himself buried here. And a lot of the old kings did that. Even though they built these huge things that would look like that's where they would do it, they had themselves buried here or around here. Well, so Seti the First was building this because of this. And as he was building back in here, there was a little hill here. And as he was building into here, he discovered an even more ancient temple that they didn't know about here. And so he turned his temple and made an L-shaped temple, which is the only L-shaped temple in all of Egypt, which is part of the proof that he didn't build this. Some people think that he faked this, but there's controversy over whether he did this or not. But this is, to me, is proof that he did not do it. Nowhere else has anyone ever made this L. He did the L so he wouldn't have to go in here and mess up that other one. And there's one thing I want to say before I go into those temples in the back. This is the inside of the Seti the First temple. And what they have discovered in Egypt in the last few years, there's writing that goes to within maybe, I don't know, from your knees all the way up to the top of this 35-foot ceiling or whatever that is up there, and even up on the pillars way at the very top. And when you go to, who's been to Egypt here? Okay, there's quite a few, about 10, 12 people. You notice that you go into these temples, and many of the figures that are on the wall, that are in either relief or whatever, however they're on there, have been chipped away or destroyed. And for a long time, they may have told you, I don't know, that it was because of the Romans and other people who had come in there had destroyed these things. They now know that's not true. They know it's not true beyond any doubt whatsoever, though they didn't know for a long time, because they've discovered in recent times that the language on the walls was placed there in such a way that there was a time frame. The language that is from about roughly about this high down was speaking of the past, and from about this high up to maybe 9 or 10 feet, or maybe even 12 feet up the walls, was the present at the time the temple was built. And the stuff that is up further is future, what they think is going to happen in the future. And they now know that who did it, because there's only one person who could have known who did it, or one group of people, and that was the priests themselves that created the temples or took care of the temples. They were the ones that went around and destroyed the writing on the walls, because only the writing that was of the present time of the temples was touched. The past and the future was not touched. And somebody just going in there, like the Romans, just to go in there and cause hell, would not have known that, or could not have picked that out so carefully to just touch the present. And to them, what they put on those walls was, when they wrote what was going to happen in the future, that was just it. That's what was going to happen. And if you don't believe that they can't see what was going to happen in the future, you're going to see a slide at the very, very end of this. I don't know how it came up for those of you who saw the videos. You probably couldn't see it very clearly or not, but you'll see this one very clearly. There's going to be a slide at the very, very end of here. I'm going to wait till the end. I got to make it dramatic. It's more fun that way. And that slide's going to be way up high, up off one of these pillars, way up there at the very, very top. And it'll be proof that they can clearly see into the future, no doubt. But you have to wait till we get there. This is the Siren Temple, which is this one back here. And it's very, very old. You're not supposed to go down in there, but I couldn't stand it. So I dropped off this thing and ran inside and took a whole bunch of pictures before they dragged me out of there. And I just had to see in there. The writing is so simple. it's so beautiful. It's just straightforward and clear. There's no junk in the middle. The writing in Egypt and in Sumeria, when it came out, was in its absolute most sophisticated, perfect form, and then degenerated after that. Got worse. Came out in its absolute clearest form with with no evolutionary pattern before. It just came out in one day. Just one day, suddenly, it's perfect writing on the walls, with nothing leading up to it. No evolution, absolutely zero, both in Sumeria and in Egypt. And then got worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And they never could understand that. You'll understand it in just a little bit, why it got that way. Anyway, they got me out of there, and when they did, I went over to here. And this is the one, that's the back of the say, the first temple. And I'm standing right now here, taking a picture toward here. And this temple was also called the Siren Temple, and it was dedicated to resurrection, according to the hieroglyphics that are found in here. And there's this ramp right here, and it was over here where that flower of life pattern was found. Now, this is the building when they first excavated it, and it was dry in there now. The Nile has changed its level and is filling up with water. And they talk about these three steps, where these steps came up this way, a thing in the middle, and the steps go back down again. These three different levels, which are associated with the three levels of consciousness, the 42, the 44, and the 46, that we're going through, which are all associated with resurrection. And this temple, this was done by Lucy de Lubitz, which was Swallow de Lubitz's daughter. She reconstructed the temple from a blueprint plan, and then discovered that it was based upon the sacred geometry of two back-to-back pentagons. She wasn't exactly sure why, all she knew that it was. But in today, when we start talking about the grids, you'll discover that the grids, I'm talking about actual electromagnetic fields of energy that exist around the Earth. Primarily, these grids exist from about an average of about 60 feet in the Earth, average, to about 60 miles above the Earth. Every life form on the planet, even if there's only 2 bugs, has a grid stretching around the whole Earth. And these grids are all superimposed, stretching up for these 60 miles up, which causes like this light blue glow around the Earth. And the highest ones are the whales. And then the dolphins come after that, and then the humans. And there's 3 primary human ones. And the newest one, which was just finished in 1989, after 13,000 years of work of constructing it, is based on a stellated dodecahedron. And a stellated, though we haven't talked about these kind of things yet, this is a dodecahedron. It's 12 pentagons. And this is an icosahedron, and if you notice in here, there's another pentagon, and with five triangles in it. You can see the similarity between these two shapes. If you were to take this out of there, this is called an icosahedral cap in sacred geometry. And when you open up a icosahedral cap, it's these 2 back-to-back pentagons like this. And the icosahedral cap is the key to the Christ consciousness grid. Because if you take a dodecahedron and put one of these in each one of these things here, that's what the primary shape of the Christ consciousness grid is. And so it was very clever of them, from my way of thinking, to base the geometries of this on something that would eventually, that they clearly understood even back then, and were in the process even back then of building, and knowing that someday would be completed. This is the place where it was found, which was right here, and I had a little better camera than Katrina had, And you can see that there's actually two of these side by side here. And I took a shot right next to it over here. And though I know you can't see this real well, this one here is called the seed of life, which we're going to look at in just a little bit here. And there's all kinds of patterns all around here, which are all based on this geometry. I put my camera around the side like this over here. I couldn't get around here because there was water and everything in there. Just to see what was over there. And again, this is the back side. You can see this. I know you can't see these real well, probably from where you are, but these are all symbols that you'll find all over the world and in churches and everywhere. And they're all understandings or what stuff that you're going to learn about in this workshop right here was on this wall. It was almost like this was a school that they were teaching this kind of stuff. After you go to one of these workshops and you go back there and you stand at the Silent Temple and you see all the symbols, you get this weird feeling because it's so familiar. I mean, it's just like, holy cow. I mean, it's just like, you know what's on the walls. You know what they're talking about. And it's just, and they're talking about everything.